Good evening. Welcome to Healing Quest. I'm Deborah Arneson, your host for tonight, and we have a return guest that I'm very excited to share with you. His name is Peter Adams, and he is a spectacular chef. And Peter is here to share some great information with us about how to take care of yourself in your crazy busy lives, because hey, none of us have any time to cook for the most part, and if we do have time to cook, most of us don't know how to make it interesting or taste interesting and absolutely fabulous and delicious, more so than restaurant food. So, Peter, we want to welcome you back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. So our reminder review is about who you are and what you do at the Illinois Institute and also at Healing Quest.
Okay.
Okay.
As you know, I'm the Assistant Chef Director at the Illinois Institute of Art, which means really...
He runs the place.
Well, we don't want to tell my boss that. So.
Okay.
I'm a jack of all trades. I'm also an instructor, so I teach everything from students that come in to us with no skills to students that are into our bachelor's program. So they have a lot of advanced skills. And I also do all the running of the day-to-day operations. So I make sure everything runs and that we have food.
So you're pretty busy.
Without food, we don't have much of a school.
Right.
So yeah, I am a very busy person.
So are you there full time?
I am there full time.
Okay.
As I tell my students, if I'm not there by 6 a.m., then I probably got hit by a car.
Right. 6 a.m. is your start time?
Yeah.
What's your end time?
We have classes that run until 10 p.m. at night.
Oh my gosh.
Every day of the week, and some Saturdays.
Oh my gosh.
So we're pretty busy.
So more and more people are trying to become, or are more interested in cooking and culinary skills and developing these.
Culinary arts as a field has really exploded over the last few years, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of that has to do with, I think, something that you probably see a lot in your own field, and that is there's a lot of confusion. The Food Network has made people really excited.
Right, about food.
But one of the first things that we have to try to dispel our students of is that, unfortunately, not all of cooking has anything to do with Emeril's BAM. We don't garnish plates that way, at least not in professional food service.
Got it.
Although it does look kind of nice, I must say, at least on TV.
Sure.
So that's been a great help to us because it's encouraged a lot of people. But on the other hand, it makes it look very, very simple. And as I think your clients have seen, and the clients that I've helped work with you on have seen, it's kind of hard to put into real practice. It's not as easy as it looks.
Right.
Although we can make it seem easy.
Right. Well, it is, you know, my cooking class I think is a breeze. You've done mine with me, right? So the whole idea is to make it simple, and the KISS principle, keep it simple and silly.
Yep.
Silly person.
Yep.
But you know, you have to. Otherwise people lose interest, and if it's too overwhelming, we're already all so overwhelmed in our lives, it's ridiculous.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, I think the hardest part about being a fabulous chef, such as yourself, is to, you know, you're so gifted and you're so talented. I'm not a chef, I'm a cook. You know, I like cooking. But as a chef, it's like, you know, you have this ability to take things and really cut it down to like the brass nuts of the whole thing and present it to people in a palatable way, to where they're not intimidated. So that's the greatest thing about the way you teach, because I've watched you on your little walkabouts in your cooking classes. You're very gifted.
Well, I appreciate that, and you're very kind to call me a fantastic chef, but you know, the term chef sometimes turns people off, and one of the first things that I do when I do the walkabouts or when I try to teach students of any type is try to dispel this notion. Really, a chef comes about through experience, and you're quite right. The chef part comes with the experience, and it is breaking it down into its component parts. But fundamentally, you know, I'm just a cook too. And I just started out as a cook too.
Yeah.
And as you'll remember, some time ago when I first walked through the doors of Healing Quest, I was confronted with some of those same issues too. It was the knowledge of how to implement nutrition as
and whole foods as the foundation.
The foundation for a different sort of life.
Right. Well, you've come a long way, Peter.
I have.
You have, totally. So last time we talked about the cooking walkabouts. Tell us more about these, you know, why you love to do them, because you know so much. I mean, I just love what you share with our clients about sustainable agriculture and, you know, sustainable fisheries and things like that. But you bring to the table a lot more than I bring to the table, I think, personally, on sharing this and explaining these different things that are important to sustaining our culture as we know it today. So,
I think being a chef and being an educator are two different things sometimes. And, you know, to be a good educator does not necessarily mean that you can be a good chef and vice versa. I kind of look at the walkabouts as kind of a captive audience. And this is a great opportunity for me to take some of what I know and pass it on to people. As you know, we try to work very closely with the people with organic foods and live foods and pass on to them how sustainable agriculture and sustainable aquaculture fits into their own diet and why that becomes important. To me, I love reading, and as you know, I have well over 700 cookbooks at home.
sure.
And I just can't get enough of this stuff.
That's great.
But, you know, in that 3-hour period, there's not a lot of time. So I could probably
Trying to
spend
keep your eyes
10
open.
hours. And, you know,
It's so
have not had
tough,
enough time.
isn't it, as a professional? I mean, I experience the same thing as a professional. It's like you want more time to learn and teach yourself, but you become the teacher. You know, and I'm sure there's a level, as there is with my business, I learn through my clients, you know, and
Absolutely.
just watching them grow and change, and you just become more proficient at what you do. But I, like you, love to be educated. I hope I never stop learning, so.
Well, every time a client comes through the door, they're a different client, and they
Sure.
have different needs, and their home life is different, and
Their
you know,
stress levels are
exactly,
different,
and you know those things about their diet that they like, and you know the ethnicity that they may have is a little bit different, and their background's so different that I always like it because it keeps me on my toes. They're going to ask me a question that I don't know,
Sure.
and I love those questions
Sure.
because you know what, I'll
Get to do
leave.
homework.
Exactly.
You get to
and
do
I'll find
homework,
out.
yeah.
And so, as you know, we generally meet at Healing Quest, and I'll take them over, and we'll go shopping. And I try to do it early in the day or late in the day, so that we don't have a lot of other
Less
shoppers around.
traffic, yeah.
Because we kind of tend to congest
Right,
because we congregate, and we
Right.
generally congregate around the produce
right.
or the seafood.
Well, and people tend to congregate when you're congregating. So people walk by and like, oh, do you work here? Oh, can I listen? Oh,
That's right.
can you answer a couple questions for
And they
me?
have
So-
been known to interrupt and
Sure.
start asking if I
Sure.
know where a particular thing is in an
Yeah.
aisle. But, you know, that comes with the
great.
territory. Once we get done with that and we go through all the aisles and we talk about things like how to read labels too. I mean, a lot of people do not know how to read labels. And even people within my field didn't really know.
Sure. Well, they're confusing.
They are very confusing.
There's no continuity whatsoever in label rules. So
Exactly. We get done with that. We go back to Healing Quest, and then we cook. We cook for about an hour. We produce a meal for a family for a week, and show them how to cook it up and how to freeze it and how to reheat it. And we have some fun, and I do a little bit something different than what you do, I think. I get them involved.
Get some
I like,
hands-on
yeah,
chopping
a little
and-
bit of hands-on. I try to throw a little bit of instruction
That's
in
great.
there. It breaks it up for a little bit for me, and it just makes it a little bit more interesting for them, I think.
that's wonderful. So people absolutely love this. I know they do. So when you show how to people how to cook meals for a week in less than an hour, how do you do this without using a lot of pre-prepared foods?
I think, there's a misconception about pre-prepared foods. There are some partially prepared foods that are all right.
I mean, like marinades or dressings?
Marinades or dressings, for example, depending on who makes them and what's in them, are okay. When, as you well know, we use a lot of them.
To use good flavor, create
to
good
add
flavor.
And flavor is really, really important in what we do.
Sure.
Because we're going to be taking some things out, some bad things, and we're going to be adding back. And the flavor is what we're really going to be adding.
Well, and everyone has this preconceived idea that for anything to be a diet or to help you lose weight or to see a clinical nutritionist or to go on a protocol or a plan involves tasteless food.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a very popular misconception. So, you know, I tell people if it's not tasting good, guess what? You're not doing it right. You know, and can I tell you how many people like will make 6 chicken breasts and a big plate, you know, bulk thing of broccoli, and that's it for like the week. They're like, well, bored. I'm like, well, you need to do the walkabout because it will open a whole new world up to you that you never knew existed. So
Exactly.
it's very cool.
But there are other pre-prepared foods that are not good. A lot of
Like?
the frozen stuff is not good. On the other hand, frozen vegetables. If you're going to use vegetables that are not live vegetables, meaning vegetables that come straight out of the produce section, fresh vegetables, then the choices between canned and frozen. Most frozen vegetables are much fresher, are much
Sure.
better for you.
Right. Next best thing to
And that's a
to
very
fresh.
easy way to save some serious time.
Sure. Because you just microwave them or cook
Just
them or
microwave
whatever.
them or just add them at the end.
So do you need a lot, when people decide to set up their kitchen and learn how to do the walkabout at the grocery store, and if I may just say this, what we do is we give them a diet plan, and I don't like calling it a diet, but it's a meal preparation agenda, and it's a lifestyle plan where we shift percentages, and you show them what grams mean and what calories, how calories tie into their specific plan. When they come back to Healing Quest's kitchen, do you recommend that these people buy special equipment, or do they need to prepare their kitchens in a certain way? Because I have done cooking in people's homes, and I quit doing that, honestly, because their pans were so god-awful, and their ovens don't heat evenly, and I was like scorching stuff because they were using aluminum, and they didn't have a spatula, and so I just stopped because my timing got all whacked. Now I have my own pots and pans and my own rhythm and my own kitchen, and everything's in place, and I know where it's all at, and you can pound this stuff
Well,
out.
everybody's kitchen is a little bit different.
Yeah,
And,
some better than others.
Yeah.
So do you think people need to spend a lot of money to set up their kitchens?
I don't. I mean, very, very basic tools are important, I think. I think a good set of knives are very helpful.
Invaluable, yeah.
But fundamentally, any set of knives will do. You'll recall the very first walkabout that I ever did for you. I was cooking in my way, and it's a professional way, and we had a little bit of flare-up, and I think you were not there at the time, and I think that I scared everybody in the place.
What's a flare-up?
A flare-up
Oh, you mean with
is
fire? Okay.
and it was no big deal, but
Right.
that it would be my way.
Right.
I think that kind of thing is going to happen, and it didn't do anything to the pans, and it didn't require any special equipment, and it's just normal, everyday stuff.
Yeah.
I don't use, when we do the walkabout, I don't use any of my special equipment. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that you could buy, a lot of very expensive tools, and I come from an older generation where Ronco produced a lot of very time-consuming,
Sure.
time-saving tools, the
Sure.
Roncomatic.
Sure.
But I don't recommend using them. I just, even for my own cooking, I actually use a knife. I just use a knife, and that's when I do the walkabouts. That's pretty much what I do.
So you're pretty focused, so it's easy for people to emulate.
Very simple.
Okay, you're a trained chef. Is it realistic for the average person to be able to learn how to do this with even just one cooking class, in your opinion?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Okay.
We try to break it down into very simple steps. Number one, it would not be so simple if we didn't really take people out and we didn't show them what to do.
The whys and wherefores, yeah.
If we put it into a cookbook and we said, hey, this is
Read
what
it.
you got to do, forget it.
Isn't something like 80% of all the people on the planet, aren't they more visually oriented?
Yeah, actually,
Where you solidify it with visual?
most people, a very large percentage of people are kinesthetic learners, meaning that they learn visually and with their hands. And so that's one of the reasons that I try to involve people in that process, because they're going to retain 60% more than people who just watch.
Right.
People who just read are going to retain about 10%. So we try to involve people in that process.
Right.
You get in there, you start doing it, you're going to remember. You're not just going to see how it is, you can
Right.
remember how it is. And it's very, very simple.
Right. It is simple. Just takes like logical step-by-step thinking and observing.
It's just basically chopping.
It's chopping and plopping it and marinating it and cooking it, right?
Yep.
And not hanging on the phone and doing laundry while you're doing that. So you toast the stuff.
Well, you can probably
do
hang
both
on the
if you
phone
get
for a
good
little
enough.
while. Yeah, that's right.
If you get good enough. Okay. You use the term, and I think I'm getting this right, mise en place. What does this mean, and how does it relate to what you're presenting here?
In professional cooking, we use that term a lot. It's mise en place. And mise en place literally means everything in its place.
Hmm.
And again, going back to your prior question about how do we do this and how do we do this so quickly, really what it comes down to is preparation.
Mm-hmm.
We chop everything up.
Getting good at
We
prep.
get everything prepped. Then we cook.
Well, and the cool thing about, too, walking through even Whole Foods, which, Whole Foods does a lot of pre-prepping of meat products for the clients, for their customers. So you can get, pork rolls, and you can get chicken sausages that are spicy or that are sweet and apple-y, or you can get, prep turkey burgers. I mean, those things just add to convenience for people.
Absolutely.
You don't have to make them from scratch.
And if you think about it, they are pre-prepared foods.
Right.
And there's nothing
And they're
wrong
good.
with doing that.
Right. Time savers, which we love.
Absolutely.
All of us in our busy lives. So a lot of us have heard and listened to the term live foods, but I can't tell you how many people are like, what's a live food? So Peter, what's a live food?
It depends who you ask, but you're
Okay.
right. A lot of people have a lot of different interpretations. I think if you ask Charlie Trotter, and I hope he's not watching when I say
Hey,
this,
Charlie.
but that for Charlie that can mean literally serving live fish.
Okay. Still moving and undulating
Still
and squirming
moving,
fish.
Squirming.
I had that once
and,
in Japan. I was like, eh!
To me, that's a little bit too live.
Yeah.
But for most of us, live food just really means that it is food that we have done as little to as possible.
Pretty much
Food-
eaten as it's grown.
Exactly.
Or raised.
Food that is closest to its natural state.
That's great.
So to give it a very simple example, it's taking produce as close to the farmer as possible. We teach our students, and I try to impart that to the students at Healing Quest, or our clients at Healing Quest, the idea of something that was made very big in the United States in the 1980s called cuisine marché, which is cuisine of the market. And it really has to do with going to the farmers markets.
Shopping.
I can't tell you. I mean, I guess I have no life, but I love
I do too.
going to the farmers market.
I do too, and I love like querying and asking. And so you say this is
Exactly.
like natural. What does it mean? And give me
Yeah,
some,
and
breakdowns.
You taste it,
Yeah.
you see it, it's fresh. But not all farmers markets are made equally.
Right.
And so if they pull these tomatoes out of a box that clearly is a box,
Of pesticide-laden tomatoes
Exactly.
from a
then
pesticide
you have to
farm.
kind of look behind the scenes.
Well, and
So-
honestly, in any grocery store, the only way you can ever know whether or not a fruit or a tomato is truly organic is you have to ask to see the box in the back.
Exactly.
Unless you go to a store, again,
That has a great reputation.
that has very clean lines about what they allow and what they don't allow.
That's right. But fundamentally, the idea of live food is the idea that it's very close to the way it was, either in the stream, in the water, in the earth, and doing as little to it as possible.
Right, and there's a whole lot being done to food in this country today, which a whole lot of people know nothing about.
That's right.
So
And
we're
that's the
here to share that.
unfortunate part.
Yeah,
That's
we're here
right.
to share that information, like it or not. Okay, so what are the benefits of using live foods, especially when we're talking about easy cooking?
The beauty of live foods is not only is it healthy, but if we're using live foods, we're cooking it very little time. Let me give you a perfect example. Vegetables. In order to get the maximum nutritional value out of vegetables, as you know, you don't want to cook them too long.
The life out of them.
That's right.
Right.
And I actually, in the kitchen, would refer to it in a lot less kindly way to my students, but that's the idea.
Beating them to death. Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't want to cook them. The beauty of live foods is that for a green vegetable, for example, when it loses its color green, you know you've cooked that vegetable too long.
Right.
The beauty for cooking easy is because if you cook less time, you save time. So you chop it up, you cook it very quickly, you're done.
Right.
You reheat it, you're perfect. It's good to go.
Right. So you kind of undercook the vegetables, actually.
You definitely undercook the vegetable relative to what most people are used to.
Cool.
I think most people in this country, although much less than they used to be, tend to look at the color olive green and they say, well, that's okay. I look at the
Only in the
olive green,
Army.
yeah, and say, well, I don't know, that doesn't look too good.
Yeah, right. Totally. I understand that. So can you give our viewers some guidelines to follow regarding using live foods, perhaps by type, like produce and fish, meat products?
Yeah. In terms of, we'll talk about fish. Fish is one of those things that probably is most enigmatic for people, and they tend to shy away from because they don't. I think that people are scared of fish, and fish.
Most people are. It has the worst reputation of being stinky and,
Exactly.
you know, disgusting and slimy, and I'm like, that's not fresh.
Exactly.
It's pretty simple.
And the truth of the matter is, in some cases, slimy fish is exactly what you look for.
Really? And what kind of fish?
Especially freshwater fish. You want to see slimy fish.
You do?
You
I
want to
didn't
have
know
slimy
that.
because that slime on the fish is actually what protects the fish in the water.
Okay.
Trout.
Gets
There's
slimy.
a great place up in just on this side
In
just
Wisconsin?
across the border in Wisconsin, called Rushing Waters, that makes farms. And this is one of the only times that I really am in
Encourage
favor of
farm foods.
raised any fish, but they raise some great farm fish, and they do a great job. And this stuff is pristine.
Are they tank fish or are they
No, they're
river
actually
fish?
in rivers.
Okay.
But the water that's tested at the beginning of the river versus the water that's tested at the end of the river, the
Quite
water's
different.
coming out cleaner
Of the stream.
when it comes out than it was coming in.
Really?
And the quality of the fish is just phenomenal.
Really?
But scallops is another thing. Scallops should be
A little slimy.
slimy. The scallops should look different, have different shades and hues. And when you see scallops and they all look the same, that's a sure sign that something's been done to them.
Ah, bleaching.
If you, there's actually a brining.
What is that?
Brining is
Salt?
really adding salt water solution.
Ah.
And by law in this country, companies are allowed to add up to a 25% brine solution to seafood.
Wow.
And what that really means fundamentally for our viewers is that they are buying 25% water.
Yeah.
And if you buy a diver scallop, which could go for as much as $16 a pound,
Sure.
that means that you're basically buying a quarter of that in water.
That's a shame.
The minute something hits heat, what happens to the water?
Shrivels.
It goes up in the air.
So when you see those scallops going from this big to that big.
Yep.
Wow.
But if you go into a seafood place and you smell very strong scent of fishiness, that's what drives people away. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you need to really remember to look for the signs of fish.
Well, this is a whole nother show. I think
It
we
would
should
be.
do a fish show because I just learned a couple new things here that I didn't know, which is very cool. So I think we should. I think we should look at fish and show people fish, and we should lay it all out on the counter, and
I'd love to do it.
that'd be so cool.
We
All right,
could
we're
get
going to do a
real
fish show, you
guy
guys.
in.
You're a good fish guy. Who's a real fish guy?
We would bring some real serious
Some real fish people. Okay, cool. We're going to do that the next one, okay? So are all unprocessed foods live and therefore good for you?
No, not all unprocessed are live, and not all live foods are good for you. Perfect example is choice between organic versus non-organic. As you well know, for many, many, many years, that we've been using foods that were fresh foods, fresh fruit. But fresh fruit, more than anything else, has been laden with pesticides in this country for many years. And
So awful.
obviously that's not very good.
Right.
And in some cases, it's just the flavor's been bred out of it, the quality's been bred out of it, and if the flavor is gone and the quality is gone, there's
Not
no
much is
nutritional
left.
value.
Well, the interesting thing, too, to know is like with foods such as a tomato or an apple, they can be perfectly gorgeous to look at. All you need is nitrogen, water, and a seed to grow something that looks perfect. That's it. Doesn't have to have nutritional value. We're running out of time, believe it or not, Peter. So real quick, because we've just got a couple minutes. We've been talking about salmon and fish and surrounding, you know, the issues surrounding farm versus raised, wild and raised, especially Alaskan salmon. Would you care to kind of go over that real quick with our viewers? Because people are confused now.
Right.
Should I do farm fish? Should I not do farm fish? Should I do wild fish? Do they have to be wild farm fish? You know what I'm saying? Because there are all kinds of different labels.
In general, the issue about farm versus fresh fish or non-farm raised fish, wild fish, is this really relates to salmon more than any other fish. All the catfish anymore you cannot buy unless you fish it in the wild. It is all farm raised. The issue about salmon is that the salmon that are farm raised are now tainting the fish that are wild, and it is depleting that stock.
What kills them off? Aren't they disease laden?
They have way different characteristics. They're very aggressive, and they are disease laden.
They're angry. They're in tanks.
Well, I would be too.
Yeah.
But the
Because
state of
don't
Alaska.
salmon have to swim hundreds of thousands of miles every
Correct.
year? They're
And they have
amazing
suppressed- but They have
fish.
suppressed those
Genes.
characteristics and those genes
That's
in the
awful.
farm. The state of Alaska does not produce farm-raised salmon.
That's great.
So it's all fresh stuff. So
That's
if
great.
it's advertised and you believe your fishmonger, they're very credible by Alaskan. And I don't normally endorse anything, but other than that, it's fresh.
It's the best.
It's good.
It's the best. And earlier we spoke about planning. What does this mean? Do we all need to go out and buy lots of cookbooks? Because
Nope.
I'm not a cookbook girl.
Well, until I write my own cookbook.
I'm a visual girl.
Until I write a cookbook, no one needs to go out and buy
No, wait until he
cookbooks.
does his
And when I
cookbook,
write
okay.
a cookbook, then we can go out and buy.
Okay.
But no, we don't really need to. And in fact, I said earlier, I have all these cookbooks, and really all I do is I just integrate all that knowledge.
And create an easy 1, 2, 3
And you know
step
what?
for the
I
average
do.
Joe.
You just go into the kitchen, and you know what? Isn't it really all about having fun?
It is. If it's not fun, I'm so not there.
You know, this really should be simple.
My life better get more fun as I get older. That's all I have
I
to
think
say.
you're seeing clients, and I'm helping you see the clients
Yeah.
that have a life that's complicated, and my life is no less complicated.
Right.
So when I go into the kitchen, I want it simple, straightforward,
And it better be a blast.
and it should be fun.
Yeah.
And
totally.
go into the store is just the same way.
I
Should
agree.
Be fun.
We've got 1 minute. How do people hear this? Just give our viewers a really quick tip. How do you tell a good fish from a bad fish? Give them a tip for the day.
Shouldn't smell.
No
should-
stinky.
Clear eyes.
Oh.
Should the flesh should spring back
When you poke it?
when you poke it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
If not, that means what? It's loaded
It's-
with brine, or
Nope, that it's probably old.
really?
Yep.
Tough old bird.
It's a tough old bird. It's seen
Okay.
better days.
Give it to us again. It shouldn't smell.
It should not smell. It should smell, if anything, it should smell kind of like cucumbers.
Oh,
if
yeah,
it's
it's really
saltwater fish.
fresh.
Exactly.
Wow.
Clear eyes.
Okay.
If you touch the flesh, it should
It
kind
should
of
boink back.
boink back.
Very cool. That's great to know. Peter, we can't thank you enough. We're out
My
of time.
pleasure.
We'll see you next week. So tune back in next week, you guys. We'll have some more great information on sustainable agriculture, how to shop savvy, and how to take care of yourself and your family so it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg and a whole lot of time. Have a great evening. I'm Deborah Arneson, bringing you good health, I hope. And until next week, God bless and be well. Take care. Bye-bye.